Okay, so what is proximity fuse and when does it matter? Proximity fuse is a 4-point commander talent on the CV line, which it says here is anti-torpedo protection negation, plus 10%. That's a lot of words. So it was specifically the person had come into the chat asking, does this matter against cruisers? And I figure some people may not know, so we actually took a Miyoko as an example, but you could easily substitute this with a battleship, and I don't think there are any DDs or subs that have torpedo protection, so we don't have to worry about them. But if we look at the Miyoko, we can see that it has 13% torpedo protection. So at this point, we'll put that at tort prot at 13%, preferably with a percent sign. Which means if you strike with 10,000 damage against this, we're gonna, I guess I'll just actually calculate it out. So 10,000 damage times 0.87 is 8,700 damage. So in this instance, if these two end up meeting, come on. No, there we go. If these two end up meeting and making out in a car, then they're going to end up making together a child of 8,700 damage. So equals 8,700 damage. Rockin'. Now, what does anti-torpedo protection negation do? Basically, it just reduces this number by 10%. That's all it does. It just artificially makes it smaller. So in this case, if we had our torpedo of 10,000 damage, we can copy, boop, put that down here, and it's going to end up hitting the torp production or torp protection of a mere 3%. I guess we could do that just so it looks kind of similar, I guess. In which case, it's going to end up equaling 9,700 damage. Now, some people can be a little overwhelmed by the calculation of it. Math can be intimidating, but here's the trick. All this means is that 10% of the damage that would have been blocked goes through. So that means 10% of this is going to equal 1,000 damage. So if you were going to hit, for instance, something that had 50% torpedo protection, you would only 10,000 damage would go in, but only 5,000 damage would go through because it would be dropped in half. However, if you use the proximity fuse, you're going to reduce that by 10%, and an additional 1,000 damage will go through. If you attacked a target with a 100% torpedo protection, 10,000 damage would go in, and all of it would be blocked. 0 damage would go through. If you had proximity fuse, reduce it by 10, 1,000 damage would go through. So you're not doing bonus damage. You're not getting more damage. You're simply making more damage go through the protection to get to the other side. Does this matter against battleships? Sure. If you hit a torpedo on a battleship, more of the damage goes through. Approximately, in this case, as you can see, 10% of the total is what additional damage gets delivered. Could you do the same thing on a cruiser? Absolutely. What about if the cruiser didn't have 13%, what if the cruiser had 5%? Well, that 5% would be reduced to 0. So instead of getting 1,000 damage through, you would get 500 damage through that would have otherwise been blocked. So is it less effective on cruisers? Yes. Is it effective at all on destroyers? No, because torpedo protection on destroyers is 0. I don't think there are any destroyers that have any. You can't reduce it below 0, so there's no benefit. What does this skill do? If they made a skill that just made torpedoes hit harder, then they would hit battleships and cruisers and they would hit, and also destroyers. They'd hit everything harder. So it doesn't really scale very well. Battleships are designed to take damage. Cruisers are designed to take some damage. Destroyers don't really want to take damage at all. So by creating a skill that interacts with the torpedo protection, that's going to have more damage go through on a battleship, some additional damage go through on cruisers, unless they have greater than 10% torpedo protection, in which case it would matter just as much as it would on a battleship, and have no additional damage go through on a DD. So it's kind of a balancing way to make sure that damage is going to places where it's not unbalanced. But frankly, you'd be using torpedoes against battleships primarily anyway, and sometimes torping cruisers, so really that's just where it goes. But that is what proximity fuse, and hopefully that answers the question.